What happens when judicial mercy is mistaken for weakness? Inside a Providence courtroom filled with cameras and onlookers, Judge Frank Caprio was moments away from delivering the sharpest response of his long career. The woman standing at the defendant's table had no clue she was about to become a viral spectacle for all the wrong reasons. "You think you can talk down to me? I don't care if you're a judge or the Pope himself," she shouted, her words reverberating through the hushed chamber. What she didn't realize was that this wasn't just any judge. This was Frank Caprio, who was about to remind her that respect is not optional in his courtroom. The next 60 seconds would turn everything upside down. Her arrogance would shatter, the room would explode with reaction, and millions online would watch justice unfold in a way no one expected. The atmosphere was charged. Camera crews leaned forward. Officers stiffened. Even the bailiff admitted he had never seen anyone dare confront Judge Caprio like this. Yet Frank only smiled. And in that instant she recognized she had made the gravest mistake of her life. The morning of September 15th began like any other inside Providence Municipal Court. Judge Caprio walked in at 7:30 a.m. Coffee in hand, reviewing the docket for the day. 23 cases, traffic violations, parking disputes, small infractions. Nothing unusual for the man widely considered America's most beloved TV judge. At 72, Caprio had encountered it all. Decades on the bench, thousands of hearings, every kind of defendant imaginable, tearful parents, stubborn teens, exhausted immigrants, wealthy businesspeople trying to wiggle out of fines. His reputation was built on kindness, humor, and a remarkable gift for cutting through appearances to uncover truth. But nothing could prepare anyone in that room for who was about to appear. Case number 17, Sandra Mitchell, 45, charged with reckless driving and failure to appear. The clerk called her name 3 times before she finally strode into the chamber like she owned the building. A designer bag swung from her shoulder, heels tapped against marble, and her cell phone stayed glued to her ear. "Yeah, I'm in some courthouse right now," she said loudly, dismissing the bailiff's repeated gestures to end the call. "No, don't worry. These people don't intimidate me." Judge Caprio observed in silence from the bench. His gaze, kind yet piercing, tracked her every step. The courtroom hushed. Even the cameras froze, waiting. The camera operators sensed a storm was coming. "Ms. Mitchell," Judge Caprio said softly, though his tone carried the weight of 40 years on the bench. "Please end your phone call and step forward." She raised a single finger, one finger to a sitting judge. "Hold on," she muttered into the phone, then looked up with open disdain. "Can't you see I'm on an important call?" The entire courtroom gasped. In 4 decades, no one had ever dared show such blatant disrespect to Judge Caprio. Court officers shifted uneasily. The bailiff's hand slid instinctively toward his radio. But Caprio stayed calm, almost unnervingly calm. What followed would be replayed millions of times across the world. "Ma'am," Caprio said again, his voice still soft but now edged with steel. It made everyone in the room straighten in their seats. "In this courtroom I am not just these people. I am Judge Caprio. And you will show respect, or you will learn why that is not optional." Sandra Mitchell laughed. She actually laughed. "Respect?" she sneered, finally snapping her phone shut. "You want respect? Maybe try earning it instead of hiding behind that little robe." The silence that followed was suffocating. Cameras zoomed in. Court reporters froze mid-keystroke. Even the hum of the air conditioning seemed to die. Caprio leaned forward. His voice was low, measured, but it carried the gravity of unshakable authority. "Ms. Mitchell, I have practiced law longer than you have been alive. I have shown compassion to thousands who have stood before me. I've reduced fines, dismissed charges, granted second chances to those who demonstrated humility. But respect," he said firmly, "is not negotiable." She rolled her eyes. "Are you finished with your lecture? I've got places to be." That was the moment Frank Caprio stopped being the warm, grandfatherly judge viewers loved, and revealed the formidable power of the bench. He rose slowly. All 6'2" of him. The black robe seemed to transform into a mantle of absolute authority. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, his voice now thunder, "you came here today facing aggressive driving charges. The fine was $150, a routine penalty I have reduced countless times for those who show respect. But you," he paused, letting the words slice through the silence. "You've chosen to turn my courtroom into your stage." She had turned the courtroom into her own stage for disrespect. So he laid it out plainly. His voice sank to almost a whisper, yet every syllable struck with absolute clarity. "Contempt of court. That added another $500. Sandra's smug look began to crumble. Disrupting proceedings. Another $300. Her lips parted but no words escaped. Disobeying direct court orders regarding her phone. That tacked on $200 more. The calculations were obvious now to everyone present. But Judge Caprio wasn't through, far from it. He shifted toward the clerk, his tone now bearing the full weight of judicial command. Enter into the record that Ms. Mitchell has displayed zero remorse, no respect for these proceedings, and has shown a repeated pattern of disregard for the very law that placed her before this court. He turned back to Sandra, who was now visibly shaken, her complexion drained of color. Your initial fine was $150. With the penalties added for your conduct in my courtroom, your total is now $1,150. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. Sandra's face cycled through emotions, shock, fury, denial, and then the dawning realization of what had just unfolded. You can't do that, she stammered at last. Judge Caprio's lips curved into the familiar gentle smile that millions had admired, but this time it carried something sharper: justice. Ms. Mitchell, I can do that. I just did. And if you utter one more disrespectful word in my courtroom, I'll hold you in criminal contempt, which carries the possibility of jail time. The shift was instant. Sandra's bravado disintegrated like brittle glass. The woman who had strutted in as if she owned the place now stood silent, stunned, finally recognizing the severity of her reality. But what came next would make this exchange unforgettable. Subscribe to our channel right now, because what Judge Caprio did after this moment will leave you stunned. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. You don't want to miss these rare moments where true justice shines. Sandra made one last desperate plea to salvage the wreckage. Your Honor, she said softly, her voice reduced to a whisper, I think you misunderstood. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I was having a rough day. Judge Caprio studied her, silent, the pause stretching. The courtroom was so still you could hear the faint hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Ms. Mitchell, everyone experiences bad days. I've had them. Every single person seated in this courtroom has had them. But bad days are never a free pass to treat others with disdain. He let the silence breathe, his words settling like weight on the air. This isn't truly about the money. It isn't about punishing for the sake of punishment. What's at stake here is something deeper, something essential. He motioned toward the chamber itself. This courtroom symbolizes something sacred in our society. It stands for the rule of law. It embodies the belief that disputes can be settled with reason and justice, rather than through force or intimidation. Sandra shifted in her stance, discomfort clear, finally starting to grasp the gravity of her actions. When you show contempt for this court, you're not simply slighting me. You are insulting everyone who has ever come here seeking justice. You're dismissing the very foundation of an ordered society. The lesson struck deep, but Judge Caprio wasn't finished. He fixed his gaze directly on Sandra, his look balancing the stern authority of a judge with the compassion that had made him admired across the world. Now, Ms. Mitchell, I'm going to extend to you a choice. A choice that countless others who once stood in your place would have been grateful to receive. The entire room leaned in. Camera operators adjusted their angles. The anticipation was electric. Everyone knew something pivotal was about to unfold. You may pay the $1,150 in fines, complete 2 days of community service, and leave this courtroom having learned, I hope, a lasting lesson in respect and humility. He paused, his words cutting through the silence. Or, you can keep arguing. And if you do, I will hold you in criminal contempt of court. That means you will spend the night in jail, and you'll still owe the $1,150. The choice was undeniable. Sandra's eyes darted around the room, taking it in, finally perceiving the courtroom not as a stage for her defiance but as a sanctuary of justice. I'll pay the fine and complete the community service, Your Honor, she answered softly. Judge Caprio inclined his head in acknowledgement. But then, his voice shifted once more, signaling that the most powerful moment was yet to come. Ms. Mitchell, he said, returning to the gentle cadence that had endeared him to millions, before you leave my courtroom, I need you to understand something. In my 40 years as a judge, I have seen people in their darkest moments and in their brightest ones. I've witnessed genuine remorse, and I've also witnessed calculated manipulation. I've seen true hardship and I've seen manufactured excuses. He leaned forward slightly, locking eyes with her. What I witnessed from you today was someone who forgot that courtesy and respect are not weaknesses. They are the foundation of civilization. The words lingered in the courtroom like a lesson that extended far beyond its walls. You came in here acting as though the world owed you something. acting as though your problems outweighed everyone else's, as though your time mattered more than the time of this court. Sandra's head dropped. The shift from arrogance to humility was complete. "But here's what I want you to remember, Ms. Mitchell," Judge Caprio continued. "The same respect you failed to show me today is the respect you should show the cashier at the grocery store, the person taking your order at a restaurant, the mechanic repairing your car, every single person you encounter in your daily life." The weight of his words settled over the room, affecting not only Sandra but everyone present. Judge Caprio stood once more, his authority now guided by wisdom. "Because respect isn't about power, Ms. Mitchell. It's about recognizing the fundamental dignity of every person you meet. It's understanding that civility is what separates us from chaos." He gestured toward the courtroom door. "You'll report to the clerk's office downstairs to arrange your community service. I am assigning you to work with the homeless shelter downtown, not as punishment but as education." Sandra looked up, puzzled. "You'll spend your 2 days of community service assisting people who have lost everything, who have nothing, and yet still treat volunteers with courtesy and gratitude. Perhaps you'll learn something about grace under pressure." The significance of the task was clear to everyone in the room. Judge Caprio wasn't finished. "Ms. Mitchell, you asked why you should respect me. Here's the answer. You shouldn't respect me because I am a judge. You should respect me because I am a human being. Just as you should respect every other human being you encounter." He paused, ensuring his words resonated. "The robe, the title, the authority, those are external. What truly matters is how we treat each other as people. Today you forgot that. I hope tomorrow you will remember it." Sandra nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. "Yes, Your Honor. I'm sorry." His expression softened completely. "Apology accepted, Ms. Mitchell. We all make mistakes. The real question is whether we learn from them." The courtroom sat in stunned silence as the full weight of what they had just witnessed began to sink in. As Sandra turned to leave, Judge Caprio called out once more, "Mitchell." She turned back. "Good luck with your community service. I have a feeling you're going to surprise yourself with what you discover." For the very first time since entering the courtroom, Sandra Mitchell smiled, a true smile. Not arrogant, not forced, but genuinely grateful. "Thank you, Your Honor." And that's when something remarkable happened, something nobody expected. As Sandra walked toward the exit, she paused, turned around, and addressed the courtroom. "I want to apologize to everyone here," she said, her voice steady yet humble. "To the court staff, to the people waiting for their cases, to everyone who had to witness my behavior today." Judge Caprio remained silent, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I came in here believing I was above this place, above these proceedings. I was wrong. Completely wrong. Judge Caprio didn't just teach me about respect today, he showed me what real leadership looks like." The courtroom was utterly silent. Even the cameras seemed to freeze. "Real leadership isn't about holding power over people," Sandra continued. "It's about lifting people up, even when they don't deserve it, even when they've treated you terribly." She turned directly toward Judge Caprio. "Thank you for not giving up on me, Your Honor. I promise I'll do better." The standing ovation began slowly, first a court officer, then a clerk, then the entire gallery. Even the camera crew joined in with applause. Judge Caprio, still in his robes, rose to his feet and applauded as well. Not for himself, but for Sandra Mitchell's moment of genuine transformation. Like and share this video right now if you believe true justice is about transformation, not just punishment. Comment below with your thoughts on Judge Caprio's handling of this moment. And subscribe because moments like this show us what authentic leadership truly looks like. As the applause faded, Judge Caprio addressed the courtroom one last time. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we witnessed here today is exactly why I believe in the power of our justice system. Not because we possess the power to punish, but because we are given the chance to teach, to uplift, to transform." He scanned the room, his eyes steady. "Ms. Mitchell entered here as one person and is leaving as another. That isn't because of anything I did. It's because she made the choice, to listen, to learn, to grow." The moral lesson seemed complete. Yet Judge Caprio had one final observation. "In 40 years on this bench, I've realized most people aren't truly bad. They're simply people caught in bad moments, moments when they forget who they really are and what they stand for." He removed his glasses, polishing them slowly, his voice calm but resolute. "Our duty isn't to destroy people in their worst moments. Our duty is to remind them of the better selves they are capable of being." His words carried a wisdom that stretched beyond the courtroom walls. As proceedings resumed with the remaining cases, the atmosphere felt transformed. Defendants approached with more respect. Attorneys spoke with greater courtesy. Even the spectators in the gallery seemed unusually attentive. The Sandra Mitchell case had become, unexpectedly, a masterclass in leadership, respect, and human dignity. Later that day, while reviewing the docket, Judge Caprio reflected on the morning's events. In over 4 decades, he had presided over thousands of cases. Yet this one would stand apart, a clear example of why he had devoted his life to public service. Not to wield authority as a weapon, but to use it responsibly. Not to shame, but to educate. Not to tear down, but to build up. The video that would emerge from that hearing would be seen by millions worldwide. But more important than the views was the message it carried. True leadership isn't about overpowering others. It's about inspiring them to reach their best selves. Sandra Mitchell had entered Judge Caprio's courtroom arrogant, dismissive, and convinced the world revolved around her convenience. She left with a deeper understanding that respect, dignity, and civility are the cornerstones of any civilized society. And Judge Frank Caprio? He went home that evening knowing he had fulfilled his calling exactly as it was meant to be fulfilled, with wisdom, with compassion, and with a moral authority that cannot be taught in law school but must be earned through decades of treating every person who stands before you as worthy of dignity, even when they forget to show you the same. That, in the end, is the true test of leadership. Not how you handle people when they're agreeable, but how you handle them when they're at their worst. Judge Frank Caprio had once again reminded the world what real justice looks like. And Sandra Mitchell learned a lesson she would never forget. But the story didn't end there. 3 months later, Sandra Mitchell returned to Judge Caprio's courtroom. Not as a defendant this time, but as a volunteer coordinator for the homeless shelter where she had completed her community service. She approached the bench with the same confidence she had displayed that September morning, but this time it was earned confidence, not arrogant entitlement. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady and respectful. "I wanted to thank you personally for what you did for me that day." Judge Caprio smiled, recognizing the woman who had undergone such a profound transformation. "I didn't just complete my community service," Sandra continued. "I stayed. I've been volunteering there for 3 months now. I've learned more about humanity, about dignity, about what truly matters in life than I learned in the previous 45 years combined." She paused, emotion clear in her voice. "You could have destroyed me that day, Your Honor. You had every right to throw the book at me, to make an example out of me. Instead, you chose to educate me. You chose to see potential in me that I didn't even see in myself." The courtroom, filled with that day's defendants and spectators, listened intently to this unexpected epilogue. "I'm here today because I want everyone in this courtroom to understand something," Sandra said, turning toward the gallery. "Judge Caprio doesn't just dispense justice. He changes lives. He changed mine." Judge Caprio nodded slowly, visibly moved by her words. "Mitchell," he said, "you changed your own life. I merely provided the opportunity, the choice to grow, to learn, to become better. That was all you." This was the moment that truly went viral. The video of Sandra's return, her testimony about transformation, and Judge Caprio's humble response would be shared millions of times across social media. It became a powerful reminder that justice, at its best, is restorative rather than purely punitive. Sandra Mitchell had entered Judge Caprio's courtroom as a cautionary tale of arrogance and disrespect. She left as a testament to the power of second chances, moral leadership, and the possibility of genuine human transformation. And Judge Frank Caprio? He continued doing what he had always done, treating every person who entered his courtroom as a human being capable of growth, deserving of dignity, and worthy of a second chance. Because that is what true justice looks like. Not the cold enforcement of rules and penalties, but the warm application of wisdom, compassion, and hope for human redemption.